Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Top 10 edition of Magic Mike's, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day, and our co-sponsor CardHoarder.com, offering the best inventory prices and delivery of cards for Magic Online. I am Evan Irwin, and get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Aaron Campbell.
Hello.
Ruben Bressler.
Greetings, how are you?
Doing well. We're doing the top 10 worst cards ever.
Yeah, something that we have not done yet, which was a little surprising. I thought for sure we'd done this before.
We have done worst mythics, but we haven't done
the
worst.
This one was a little difficult. You know, I love bad cards. You know, need I remind you that I'm the girl that had an opportunity to play Black Lotus, Ancestral Recall, and Mock Sapphire at Eternal Weekend, and I said, I'll pass.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's a popular conversation target. I know that Wedge hasn't done one of these before, so we thought we might, and he's a competitor of ours in the MTG Streamer Award thing that popped up for large channel.
Oh my gosh! I suppose we're a large.
And so we thought we would fill that void.
Yeah,
Wedge.
I mean, we don't have quite the hordes to point in different directions. That's okay. And we wish that Wedge would just make that video already. We've asked him over. Anyway, that said, we get started each week with a choice of the top comment from last week in a segment we call Honorable Mention, where Ruben will tell us who was the most luxuriant and letting us know what card we did not choose as one of our top 10 Ultimate Masters cards. Ruben?
I was a little surprised that there was a bit of a quorum as to which card we missed. There were multiple comments about the same card. And the comment that I like the best is from a user on YouTube named Hey Apples.
Hey,
hey Apples. I feel like the new version of Bitter Blossom is a case example for a reprint done right in a master set. Not only are you increasing the accessibility of a popular throwback, you're also revitalizing it with a new 10 out of 10 beautiful take on the artwork. I doubt anyone is going to open a pack of UMA and feel bad about this card in the rare slot in the way we saw so often in previous sets.
I'm sorry, what's it called?
Bitter Blossom.
Bitter Blossom. Oh, talk about. Oh my gosh. Bitter Blossom, first of all, this past weekend, I believe it was this past weekend, a Fairies deck made top 8.
Uh-huh.
But Wizards didn't call it Fairies. They called it Blue-Black Control, and it's like, guys, you know how long it's been since Bitter Blossom top 8 at a Grand Prix?
Yeah.
Just let them have it. Just let them call it Fairies.
Fairies players are a lot like Vengevine players. You know, there's a small, devoted group of players that is just determined to make that a thing. And, they'll play it when it's good. They'll play it when it's bad. I know that there's quite a few in Illinois. I seem to recall a Midwestern grinder named Joe Bernal loves a Fairies deck. And, it's just one of those things that the people who love it, they're always kind of waiting for that card to, push it over the edge. And I think it's great.
The Wizards can't even give them the right deck name, I swear. Well, thank you. Hey, Apples. Hey. Hit us up at our subreddit, Magic Mike subreddit. Hit up the moderators. We'll get you your gift certificate to Cool Stuff.
Like those apples.
That's right. To CoolStuffInc.com. Thanks much to Cool Stuff for sponsoring that little segment right there.
And what else is on CoolStuffInc.com?
Cool stuff in stock every day. Also, our Magic Mike's products. You can find the Magic Mike's tokens, the foil ones, the play mats are in there, the stickers and the magnets if you want to get you one of those.
Nice.
Those are currently on the website. Search for Magic Mike's on CoolStuffInc.com to find our stuff. Mm-hmm. Plug, shameless plug. If you missed out on the Kickstarters, this is the way to get some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's move on here to number 10 to start the countdown on the worst cards ever. We're talking 25 years. This is the bubbling crap. This is what you just scrape it off the top and throw it out because you don't need it. Ruben, let's kick it off with what's your number 10?
So we did our worst mythics, but bad rares. There's nothing quite like a bad rare. Evan and I were at the Rivals of Ixalan pre-release, and there were some bad rares, but none of them quite stunk up the joint, quite like Sphinx's Decree. It's just a real feel bad. It's always a last pick. I've never seen one cast, and that's like a really good Barometer. Just everything about this card is bad. It's a colorless and a white for a sorcery. Each opponent can't cast instant or sorcery spells during that player's next turn. Doesn't even, I mean, that feels like an ability that would cantrip, right?
Yeah.
And this card wouldn't even see play if it replaced itself, probably.
I mean, silence costs half the mana at instant speed and stops all the spells.
All stuff. So what's happening exactly with Sphinx's Decree? Other than it's like flavorful with Azor, the Sphinx, the actual Sphinx's attack trigger, it's just so bad.
Yeah.
It could have done a lot. It could have done a whole bunch. And I know, see, the joke is that every Magic card's automatically better if it draws a card. But when you're like, this is like strictly worse in multiple facets than just silence.
For me, that's a card that when I first saw that, I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. You know, sometimes you see cards come out in one set and you don't really know what deck they're going to go in, and you just assume that it's going to be explained by a future set coming out in the block. So when I see something like that, I'm immediately drawing a parallel to silence, and I'm like, oh, are we getting a broken deck? Is there a broken combo? Am I going to need to protect combo with this? Like, I'm waiting for, like, come on, give me the other half, and then it just never came, and it was like, really, what was this for?
It's just kind of painful when you're just like, I know you want that effect as a Magic card, I guess. Why did you make everything worse? Yeah. And I mean, that's where I take the basic land over that one. I just like, you know what? You can have this. You're the last drafter. You can have that. It's fine. Aaron, what's your number 10?
My number 10. My proviso for a lot of these were cards that I was just going through Gatherer, I was going through Google, and these cards just made me go, why? Why? And we're going to start off with a bit of a doozy. So when I hear names like Urza and Mishra, I'm expecting great things. You know, these are the characters of the Brothers War, you know. And so when you see something like my number 10, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that these two amazingly powerful characters would settle for cards like Mishra's War Machine. So Mishra's War Machine is an artifact creature type Juggernaut. It's a 5/5, costs 7 colorless mana, 7. And it has banding. And it says at the beginning of your upkeep, Mishra's War Machine deals 3 damage to you unless you discard a card. If Mishra's War Machine deals damage to you this way, tap it. Who? Who is this for? 7 mana is so much. We were talking in the pre-show about Zancha, the commander card Zancha. You can get a 5/5 for 3. And here's a 7 colorless for a 5/5 with banding. Girl, bye.
I mean, wait, Zancha's a 3/3, isn't it?
No, she's a 5/5.
Oh
but you give it
God.
to your opponent.
That's
But I'm
fair.
just saying, like, when you look at just how they're making creatures nowadays, 7 mana for that?
This is a good sort of mirror for, like, how did they, hey Grandpa, how did they make Magic cards back in the day? And you're like, they had words on them I didn't understand. No one knew what banding did. No one,
Yep. It's just like, there's just ice cauldrons and power batteries all over the place that are just huge lines of text. They don't really do anything. Creatures were horrendous. Spells were overpowered. It's the way of things back in the olden days.
Man,
there was that article that was going around last week, the open letter to Cedric and Jerry, and that was there's a part in that article where he talks about the good old days when spells were good, and that was the part that made me just sort of Hail Mary of like,
I mean,
those days.
I have purchased with my own money a pack of 4th edition and have opened a Mishra's War Machine, and God, did it feel awful.
Yep. It takes a lot to be the worst war machine that's ever been printed in Magic history. You got to do a lot to be worse than Vodalian War Machine.
And yet,
here we are.
Well, look, for my number 10, this is one of those cards that, like, I definitely had a period of Magic where I left after Stronghold and I came back around, Mirrored and whatnot. And I'm glad I missed this weird stage of Magic. And when they were like, wow, Magic's too powerful, so it has to suck. And then it has to really suck. And then they're like, Macadia Masks, where you can't believe the suckage. We made a whole world that it's a giant vacuum cleaner. It just sucks because their attempt to make an exciting 1-drop is just the stupidest, most kind of hilarious thing I've ever seen. In Flailing Soldier. Flailing Soldier is a 1 red mana 2/2. And this was back in the day when they would never ever do that. Jackal Pup was just like the height. It's a 1 mana 2/2. It's a human soldier. It's red, of course. For 1 generic mana, you can give it +1/+1 to end of turn. And any player can activate that ability. And for one generic mana colon, you can give it -1/-1 until end of turn. And any player can activate this ability. So you're telling me that your play pattern with this card is you play land, your opponent plays land and says go. You play land, Flailing Soldier. They play land, kill your soldier for free. What?
Yeah.
That's magic.
And what kind of play does this even? Oh my god! Like I could see if maybe this was like a commander card again, where politics are fun, and that's one of the things that makes Zansha so exciting. But in just a single 1v1 game, like it encourages you both to never really tap out and to fight over this card. Like I'll fight over a lot of things. I'm not fighting over a flailing soldier.
I mean, I'll give it +1/+1. I'll give it -1/-1. I'll give it +1/+1. I'll give it +1. I'm like, just you're killing me, my soul. This is
So,
I hate it so much.
there was a whole series of, well, first of all, there was a mini cycle of flailing creatures
It's true.
from Mercadian Masks. And honestly, the other two are kind of worse, because at least if you're on the play and you play a flailing soldier, it doesn't die immediately. If you played the ogre or the manticore, your opponent would just be like, all right, here's this thing dying.
They tried to make a common to uncommon, remember that? So I tried to choose the worst one in the common, and that it's just so awfully terrible. But the Manticore,
honestly, I think that one's the best of the three, meaning it's still atrocious.
Yeah.
Mercadian Masks failed on a lot of fronts. Any player can activate this abilities of the Mongers and the flailing creatures. They just missed the mark.
the Flailing Manticore, they couldn't even let this thing be a 4/4. Flailing Manticore is a 4 mana 3/3 flying first strike with the same ability as the Flailing Soldier. So your opponent has to pay less than what you paid for it to kill it.
Now listen, I've had a lot of fun with Squallmonger in my day, specifically in my Omnath Locust mana deck. You know, when you're floating a whole bunch of green mana, it's like, I'll just kill everyone.
Oh man, the whole Flailing thing hurt, but Flailing Soldier hurt me the most. That said, let's move here to number 9. Aaron, what's your number 9?
My number 9 is the first of 2 hires that I have today.
Ooh, okay then. Well, Ruben, what's your number 9?
Blue isn't great at discard effects. I know we've had Amnesia at one point in the past.
How dare you? Careful study, breakthrough.
Making opponents discard is what I meant.
Thank you.
Not the windfall breakthrough kind of. They're pretty good at careful study. They're pretty good at frantic search. Not so good at the Amnesia. Every once in a while, you'll get a Vendilion click, which isn't even discard. But then there's corner case of all corner case cards. Things like Hisoka's Defiance. I'm sure we'll talk about stuff that are just like, this affects about 5 total cards in the game cards. And one of those is Trap Finder's Trick. Colorless in a blue, sorcery. Target player reveals their hand and discards all trap cards.
Oh, woof.
Yeah. I'm not sure how many traps there are in the history of Magic. It can't be more than 30. Like, it can't be, it's around 20 probably, right?
Well,
because they're all in Zendikar.
Yeah, they're
It's just atrocious.
No, they are. Oh my god, it made me think trap. Why are you doing this to me? So let's do a quick search here. There are 20 cards in the history of Magic the Gathering that this will actually hit.
They have the subtype trap. Great. Wonderful.
Yeah, and they're pretty much all in Zendikar because that's where the traps were. My favorite is we go back to the place, the Indiana Jones world that's supposed to have all the traps, and they didn't print a friggin' one in Battle for Zendikar. Not even one.
Yeah. That's a part of Zendikar I would have really liked to have seen brought back.
Me too.
This spell is not...
Traps are worth revisiting.
Yeah.
It's just, this spell does nothing.
It could have had an extra line about something about instants and sorceries or something. I don't know, something.
And what's going on with the art? There's a weird like lion, and I don't know what.
I don't know, man.
I think it's a head of a statue, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I don't know.
I want to see the art description for that one because it doesn't make any sense. You're finding a trick, huh? You're finding all the traps. That's
That's the trick that the Trap Finder has done.
That's what I thought of in my head when I saw Trap Finder. Aaron? Okay, so Aaron's number 9 is there. Yours Trap Finder's Trick, which makes everyone sad. Oh my god. Yeah. Well, mine is an old throwback. You know, it's, I guess in many ways, I have a lot of very old cards because I'm very old. And secondly, I've either seen some of these cards literally be in trade binders or someone try to play them against me. This one I've only seen in trade binders because it is horrific. And it ain't on the reserve list, so no one cares about this card. There's a few cards on here that are garbage, but at least they're reserve list garbage, and maybe, you know, they'll increase over time. But Legends had a lot of cards. Like, it had a lot of cards, and it had a lot of bad cards. And back in the day, Wizards of the Coast overvalued various effects, such as, you know, for double strike, even that's a lot further along, but they overvalued certain abilities. And one of the things, especially back in the day, that they thought was just like crazy powerful, that you would put spells in your deck to give this ability, that would be the land walking ability. And there is a creature that not only are you going to give it land walk, you're going to give it land walk of among the worst colors of Magic at the time, and certainly until it stopped being relevant in any case, and that would be Great Wall. Because Great Wall, you gotta, it's not even given on, they're not even giving it to your creatures, I'm sorry, it's literally taking it away. Great Wall is a white and 2 generic mana for an enchantment that says creatures with Planeswalk may be blocked as if they did not have this ability. I can't.
How many cards have Planeswalk?
We're gonna figure out here.
I'm gonna guess 6. My guess is 6.
You are wrong, sir.
Dang.
There are 7. Okay, and at least one of them silver bordered. So if you want to win that way, you can say.
All right.
I'm just trying to understand it from a flavor perspective. So, like a wall, creatures of Planeswalk may be blocked by the wall, but
yeah,
and walls have existed even at that point in Magic as walls, and yet the Great Wall is not a wall.
It's not even a wall.
It's frustrating on so many different levels.
There's actually only 4 creatures that naturally just have Planeswalk.
That's fair.
There's Great Wall, which removes Planeswalk.
Mm-hmm.
There's Lord Madness, which removes Planeswalk or Forest Walk.
Okay, that's fair.
There's Eyes in Highway, which grants Planeswalk. And then there's Old Fogey, which is a silver bordered card.
Right. Righteous Avengers out of...
which has snow-covered Planeswalk, not even regular.
Does that have snow-covered Planeswalk? No.
That's what it has.
It's Righteous Avengers?
No, Old Fogey.
Old Fogey, yes. Righteous Avengers is another Legends card that had Planeswalk, because that was... And you paid 5 mana for that 3-1, by the way. 5 mana for the 3-1 Planeswalk. Then you had Zodiac Rooster. That showed up. Yes, Rooster and Portal 3 Kingdoms. That's great. And for just random reasons, beyond Graceful Antelope, which was a rare in Odyssey, they made a common Boggart Arsonists in Shadowmoor.
Yeah.
Why?
Because why not? Why not just bring back Planeswalk on one random garbage
card?
We're
going to feel real dumb in 2 years and we're doing this show and they're like, surprise, Planeswalk's a major theme.
This isn't Planeswalkers. This is Planeswalk.
Oh, man, they have killed this. They killed that term. If anything, I almost think like Boggart Arsonist was like this weird send-off to Landwalk.
Yeah.
Like, we'll see you later because it's all terrible. Okay, let's move on here to number 8. Number 8 generated its own Twitter poll because of every single Magic card that exists. What, like 16, 17,000, whatever we're up to these days? Yeah. All those Magic cards, 10 of them we consider to be the worst of all time. And yet, Ruben and I chose the exact same number 8.
You two do this a lot.
We do this a lot.
I love it when this happens.
We have a random, like, middle of the list share.
Just in it. Got that connection.
It boggles the mind a little bit.
Connection. Okay. Look, because this card's crap. And it's like...
we probably are using a lot of the same resources to be like...
and that's
Google
fair.
search worst card ever.
Yeah, I mean, look...
card. Oh, number 8.
Whereas I'm a little more original.
Yeah, where I just copy off of Evan's homework.
Yeah. Nice. Well, look, I mean, you could argue in Champions of Kamigawa block that is beloved to my heart because it's one of the best things that happened when I came back to Magic. And the type of creature of spirits that was all over Champions of Kamigawa. That was the thing. You played spirits, you got key counters, you get spirits, you get triggers. It's awesome. And so for some reason, the creature that wants you to play it over and over again at a horrible rate, which we'll get to, is a spirit and is one of those creatures that, had it existed in the already terrible Champions of Kamigawa block in terms of, exciting creature designs, would have fit right in. This would have fit right into Saviors. Ruben, tell us what our number 8 is.
So our number 8 is Zephyr Spirit. Aaron, after I tell you what Zephyr Spirit does, I want you to guess what you think the cost of this card is. Okay. Or like what a reasonable number would be. It's an 0/6 spirit, common from Ravnica, City of Guilds. When Zephyr Spirit blocks, return it to its owner's hand. So it never dies in combat. It just always bounces off of things. And it's an 0/6. What's like an okay, like at what cost would you play this?
So I keep thinking of Blinking Spirit, which was 3 and a white, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was fun. And that could attack, and that had flying.
Right. This one has a bigger butt.
Blinking Spirit did not have flying, even though it looked like it.
Oh, it didn't? Oh,
I might put this at like 2 colorless and a mana.
Okay. So for 3, you think that that's about the right rate? I think that's about right. I think it'd be a good card at 2.
Oh, I think it'd be really good at 2.
It's like medium playable at 3. At 4, it's too much, right?
We're already hitting like cringe levels at 4.
Yeah.
It costs 5 colorless and a blue.
What?
It costs 6 mana for your 0/6 common spirit that is an 0/6 that blocks. And
I guess I just wonder why it has to have so much toughness if it's probably going to be blinked anyways. Like if you're just going to block and then before damage, why does it need such a big butt?
It could literally be an 0/1. And what's the difference?
Yep.
But you're playing a 6 mana fog. You're that creature over there. That's what you're playing at that point.
It's pretty inexcusable.
It's unplayable garbage. It was a pass out, and I had a million of them that I threw away because they were garbage. And turns out, to this day, still garbage. Yeah, all right. Aaron,
I can excuse a lot from the old sets, but they should know better by the time you get to Ravnica.
By the time Ravnica was there, like that was egregious. It's egregious. All right, Aaron, what's your number 8?
All right, I'm going to climb aboard the Mercadian Masks train. This card is expensive. That's the only thing I keep thinking of here. It's not necessarily bad, and in fact, we've seen a lot of things that are very reminiscent of this in recent cards, but it's cheaper, and there's less conditions. There's less stars that you have to get to align in order to get it to work. But I look at this and I'm like, that is so much mana, and I just can't imagine, the irony of the card is I just don't know who exactly it's protecting for that much mana. My number 7 my number 8 is Security Detail. So Security Detail is 3 colorless and a white. It's an enchantment just for the enchantment, and it doesn't even do anything when it hits the board. Then you pay 2 white and you can put a 1/1 white soldier creature token into play. Play this ability only if you control no creatures and only once each turn.
You couldn't even get around it.
So you're paying 4 just to get it on the board. Yeah. Another 2 to get a 1/1. And you can only do that if you already have no other creatures. And then you can only do it once each turn. So it can't it's not a Lingering Souls thing where you can make multiples. You get 1. And that 1 has to last you. And if something happens to it, it's just so much. I'm like, that's a lot of, and then it has to be specifically 2 white. And there's just so much work. We have Spectral Procession now and all these other things.
Compared to Mobilization or Sacred Mesa.
Yeah.
It's horrendous how bad this card is.
So who are you protecting when you're only able to put 1 guard out at a time?
In a world where they had the most stupid, overpowered, we're fixing the format stuff, that had a lot of these kind of sort of almost hidden interactions, to not have that those last few words, and only once each turn, to basically say, okay, this card looks bad, but if you activate, then activate, then activate, and then let those all resolve, at least you have 3 1/1s or whatever out of it. But no, they put the stopgap on any fun on this card. They made sure all sides were taped up nice and clean and shut. Crap. Just poop inside.
Bad.
It's like Intel, but poop. All right. So let's move on here to number 7. Ruben, what's your number 7?
So there's when you have a bad card, it's bad, but I like it. Like Security Detail is a great example of it's bad in such a myriad of exciting and different ways, right? Like it costs too much and its effect is minimal and its effect is bad and they put a stopgap on it so that it's not actually breakable. Why? What are we worried about that we put, 6 firewalls between us and Security Detail being good? It's the same thing with my
number. Security.
Huh?
I like it.
Oh yeah, there you go. With my number 7. So if you pay 6 mana for a common creature, you oftentimes can get like a crawl worm or at least a vanilla 5/5. In black, it's a little bit tougher. you know, you got some bad cards that exist, and I can excuse the old bordered stuff for a little bit, but Bog Hoodlums is in a class all by itself, in just atrociousness and badness and complexity, in all wrapped up into one that you put at common for whatever reason. So Bog Hoodlums is 5 colorless and a black Goblin Warrior, common from Lorwyn, one of my favorite sets of all time. It is a 4/1 for your 6 mana. Bog Hoodlums can't block for your 6 mana 4/1. And when it comes into play, you clash with an opponent. If you win, you put a +1/+1 counter on Bog Hoodlums.
And how do you
so
clash?
you get a 5/2 that can't block if you win the clash. Best case scenario.
And what is clashing again?
Clashing is you and an opponent each reveal the top card of your library. Then you may put that card on the top or the bottom of your library, and your opponent can do the same. Whoever wins the flip wins the clash, and you win the flip by having the higher converted mana cost. So if the top card of your deck is higher than the target, then you get a +1/+1 counter.
My favorite comment from that era is, well, what if they're both the same? And you're like, well, you didn't win, did you? And they're like, but what if it's both the same? And I'm like, but you didn't win, did you? Right. And so this card is, and first of all, if you know, like, how do you find a spike? Ask if they like Lorwyn, because spikes love Lorwyn because it's just big, complicated magic. And it was terrific. I love Lorwyn. Lorwyn's great and just fantastic. But it was really super complicated. And stupid stuff like this makes no good sense as to why you would have, first of all, why can't they just block? Why is it so bad they can't block?
Why exactly? Why can't it just block? It's 6 mana with 1 toughness. It's not.
Well, I mean, Icarid can't block, and Bloodghast can't.
Icarid's a good card.
Yep, that keeps coming back. This guy's just like, maybe I'm a 5/2 someday for you 6 mana, and so that means literally everything kills it for 1 or 2 mana.
Doesn't appear to have anything to do with an actual bog. Like, I'm trying to understand. Like, and it's a good idea in theory. Like, one of the things I like about Lorwyn is the idea that you're getting sort of you have like kind of the black goblins, and you have sort of these weird inverses of things we already know and love. And so I love the idea of it, but just upon the execution, I'm like, ooh, that's a lot.
This is the type of card that makes someone go like, all right, I'm not looking more into Lorwyn. I've seen enough. And you're like, no, for real. Like, it's really cool stuff in here. And they're like, nah, I'm out. Out. It's good. Well, what is your number 7, Aaron?
So I famously don't like burn decks. Ruben can tell you can tell by the mountain that's missing from my wall. And so I'm usually all ears when somebody tells me that they have a card that could be good against burn strategies. But this is a card that you couldn't even convince me to play. Like, I would rather lose to burn than play this card, which is weird because it also does things that I like to do. I like discarding cards. So you would think that if someone says to me, hey, Aaron, I have a card where you could discard other cards and gain life, you like that, right? I would be like, yeah. And then I would look at Sophic Centaur and be like, no. So Sophic Centaur is some Planar Chaos. It's 3 colorless and a green, creature type Centaur Spellshaper.
Great.
It's a 1/1. So 1/1 for 4. That's already a lot. Then you have to pay another 2 and a 2 green, which doesn't even have Summoning Sickness. So you have to wait a turn. So you're paying 4 for a 1/1 that you then need to wait a turn for or somehow give it haste. So 2 colorless and 2 green, you tap it, discard a card. Okay. You gain 2 life for each card in your hand. So you're discarding a card and then checking to see how many cards are in your hand. Why? Like, the whole point is I could see if it did something to create more cards in your hand, like, okay, this is good, but why? It's so much work and it just contradicts itself. I just don't get it. And so I would rather lose to burn than try to play this.
I mean, Gerard's Wisdom's great and all. I don't know if I want to keep casting Gerard's Wisdom from my hand over and over.
If that's all you're doing with your 4 and discarding cards, and you're probably already in a bad spot. Like, that's not getting you out of any sort of binds, And
it's not like it could even be like a 1/3 or something, just a 1/4, something you could block with, because that's the whole idea. It's just as awful a rate as you can possibly imagine. You had to put in 8 mana and technically 2 cards counting itself to gain 2 life for what you are left with in your hand. Don't worry, don't look for any dignity in there, because there ain't none. Dignity gone. Wow. Yeah. Well, that card's horrific, and I had completely forgotten about it. So thanks for reminding me. So this card for me, for my top 7, is it's another jab at Legends. God bless them, they made so much garbage. There is one minor thing going for this one, in that it's got some pretty neat looking art, because it's Kaja Foglio, and I love Kaja Foglio, and that's cool, and she made some super sweet looking stuff. But this card is completely garbage. And when you look up in the night sky and you're like, is that a turd? Is that a turd? That's a turd. That's the North Star, and it's a turd.
Okay, I was gonna say, if you say Bird Maiden, I'm walking out.
No. North Star is a 4 generic mana artifact. It is a rare. It is part of the reserve list, by the way. It's up to $25, even though this thing is god awful. It says 4 generic mana tap : for 1 spell this turn, you may spend mana as though it were mana of any type to pay that spell's mana cost.
Wow.
That's what you do for the privilege.
I had
Which
no
is
idea that
interesting
card
because,
existed.
and I don't know if it was like this at the time, but we think of green as sort of being the ramp color, where it's very easy to, between, you have your birds of paradise, or you have your your utopia sprawls. It's not hard for green to make other colors of mana, to where
Right.
I could see if maybe this was something for another color, or if it wasn't even bound by color.
Well, that's just the example that it.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, it says right here.
Well, the text is so confusing.
Oh yeah, I want you to read that. I want you to hear this original printed text. Okay, it says 4T. Literally, the T is sideways. They got on that for a while.
All T, all shade.
Heyo. : you may cast 1 spell this turn by paying its casting cost with any type of mana. For example, 2 GG becomes 4 generic mana. However, the card still retains its original color. This ability is played as an interrupt.
Interrupts, yes.
Faster than instance.
Yeah, this is pretty, and which is a shame because the art is gorgeous.
The art's
It's very
fun.
Frozen. I love it. And what does it have to do with stars? I don't. At least Falling Star kind of makes sense, but I'm just like, what does this have to do? If you're not, aren't you supposed to follow the North Star?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, you that leads you somewhere. This
Where's this leading you? To the O2 bracket? I know it's
leads you to the dump. You're like, where the? It smells here.
paradox. Yeah.
Yeah, it's rough. All right, let's
Mm.
move on here to number 6. Aaron, what's your number 6?
Now, some cards, I can't even look at this. It's so bad. I can't even look at it. I have to tab out. So some cards have a lot of bells and whistles to them, where you could really do anything you wanted with them. And they have lots of uses, and they're very intuitive, and you could do all sorts of fun things with them. And then there are some cards that they try to make it seem like it's more complex, but in reality, you're just like, it has one job, and it doesn't even do that one very well. My number 6 is Razor Grass Screen. So Razor Grass Screen is 1 colorless. It's an artifact creature wall. It's a 2/1. And it says walls can't attack. And then it says Razor Grass Screen blocks each turn if able. What else are you gonna do with it? I don't understand.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That is a heck of a. Wow.
I could see if it had like an activated ability. I could see if it had anything else it could do, but it can't attack. Like, what are you gonna do with it? It's so bad.
It makes you block. It's a wall. That's what it does. You couldn't choose not to. It makes you
Jesus.
block. It's super terrible. Yeah, Razor Grass Screen though is a special type of awful, where you're like, it makes you make it awful. Like, you can't even have any slight upside to what should be basically a downside card to start with. Another good example of Wizard was just like, oh, you think you're going to get a good creature, huh? No. It doesn't have affinity on it.
Right. I mean, I could
Wow.
see it's just so bad.
Ruben, what's your number 6?
My number 6 is higher on someone else's list.
Ooh, okay. All right. Well, in that case, I get to talk about my number 6. Now, this one is so good. It's so good because you have to. This is one of those cards where you have to imagine the scenario, the magical Christmas land of scenarios. Okay, this is the magical Christmas land of scenarios. All right, your opening hand, for whatever reason, happens to be 2 of one card, 2 of another card, 2 of another card, and a land. And what you do for the first 3 turns is nothing. And then what I do when I finally get 3 mana, I play this card from Odyssey called Hint of Insanity. And it's terrible. Hint of Insanity is a black and 2 generic mana for a sorcery. Target player reveals their hand. That player discards all non-land cards with the same name as another card in their hand.
Great.
Huh. Okay.
So if you just so happen, and again, this is 3 mana, okay? You've had 3 turns to do stuff and play stuff and get rid of what you would describe as extra copies of things. So you're not nabbing their 2 Llanowar elves, their 2 birds of paradise. No, no, no. You got to pay the full 3 mana, which they usually reserve for common discard spells that are not very good, and hope to God they have 2 of something.
Wow. Turn 1 Dark Ritual, hint of insanity.
I guess that was a playable play back in the day, right?
Just, it wasn't even, though.
No, it wasn't. Not. I mean, I think it might have been a legal play is what I'm saying. Not sure. It was a good play. Yes.
Agreed.
It was a legal play. Oh my God. Hint of insanity was just, it was ripe and it was gross. I didn't like it. So we went here to number 5. Aaron, what's number 5?
I'm no stranger. I'm a black mage. I'm very much a black mage. I am no stranger to paying life for cards. I love Necropotence. I love Spoils of the Vault. I love Ad Nauseam. I am about that like Yawgmoth's bargain. I am never happier than when I'm resolving a turn 1 bargain or a turn 2 bargain. That feels really, really good. But this is a different kind of trading life for a card. And this is a cost that I'm not comfortable paying. The cost is too damn high for my number 5. I just said that I love casting a Yawgmoth's bargain, but you will never catch me playing a bargain. Just bargain. This is not a bargain. Right. So this is a sorcery with 2 colorless and a white from Portal 2nd Age. It's a sorcery. It says your opponent draws a card, you gain 7 life. What? How is that a rate worth paying? I don't understand. I would rather kill myself, quite honestly, with Ad Nauseam and fail to draw what I wanted to draw than do this. Like, I don't understand.
I want you to go back and I want you to note, particularly these days, how often you're gaining life while playing Magic. Just regular Guilds of Ravnica Limited, M19 Limited or whatever, Dominaria Limited's on right now, where it has a Mesa Unicorn and things at common. You're gaining life all over the place. You're making soldiers with lifelink all over the place because games of Magic need to. That way they can pump up the creatures and make them better because you're gaining life in the meantime to offset that. So this is one of those things that you can see that Wizards clearly thought was way more powerful than it was, which was, oh my God, you're gonna gain 7 life? That's incredible. You gotta give your opponent a card for that. You know, it's like, okay. I mean, I know this is the teaching set, right? What are you teaching these people? Huh?
Right. This
is our youth. Yeah. What's going on with our children? That's disgusting.
Now, if you have a Yawgmoth's bargain in play and then play bargain,
okay,
that's pretty good.
Makes a little bit of sense.
At that point, throw in a Lich's Mastery and have a gay old time.
Heyo.
Yeah, right, exactly. But the other thing is, you could just gain 7 life some other way without giving your opponent any resources. It's just absurd.
It's awful. Ruben, what's your number 5?
My number 5 is a card that is so expensive to use so as to be laughable. And it has a direct comparison to another card that exists. They printed Viridian Longbow originally, I think in Mirrodin.
Yeah.
Which was an equipment that let your creature become a Tim. It allowed your creature to tap to deal a damage to a
really fun if the creature has that touch, let me tell you.
Yeet.
Sure. Great. And it allows your creature to become a prodigal sorcerer or a prodigal pyromancer or whatever. It cost 1 and it equipped for 3. Now what they did was later in World Wake, for whatever reason, instead of the artifact costing 1, it now costs 3. Instead of equipping for 3, it equips for 2. But using the ability not only unattaches the equipment, but then returns the equipment to your hand. Razor Boomerang is an uncommon from World Wake that costs 3 mana. It's an equipment that has tap, unattach Razor Boomerang. It deals 1 damage to any target. Return Razor Boomerang to its owner's hand.
For 5 mana.
What in the world?
5 mana.
5 mana, and you have to resolve the spell every time.
Yeah.
In order to be able to use it.
This was now, and I want you also to think about this. Zendikar and World Wake, that draft format, it was one of the fastest draft formats in the history of Magic the Gathering.
Right, that as well.
Like games went in on turn 4, sometimes turn 5. And Razor Boomerang is the 5 mana. I dealt you 1 damage with my 1 creature that I also had to tap, and it was uncommon.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was,
Which is a shame because I like the art. I like that the Minotaur is getting sort of caught up in the boomerang, and I think the flavor text is kind of funny, but that's a lot. That's a lot.
it is, and it sucked. And it didn't stop sucking. It's now just a part of this list to note how much it sucks because it's terrible. Well, look, next card. It's always fun when, like, it has one printing, it's not on the reserve list, it's super old, and Wizards didn't even bother to add it to Magic Online. Like, we're just, we're good. We're good.
Oh,
Maybe
nice.
no one will notice.
I know, right? Because, again, we're in early set territory, because that's where I get to poke the most fun. We're in the dark. The dark was bad. The dark was early. The dark was weird. The dark was awful. And the dark was caused... And as a result, there were many monks. There's a lot of sort of church-oriented themes going on in the dark, crusades and stuff like that. And at one point, there's a monk who's hanging there. He's there. He's clearly deep down because you know what? Because he's fasting. And there's a whole magic card called Fasting. It costs 1 white mana. It's an enchantment. It says at the beginning of your upkeep, put a hunger counter on fasting. Now I'm reading you the new words, by the way. You're welcome. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a hunger counter on fasting, then destroy fasting if it has 5 or more hunger counters on it. If you would begin your draw step, you may skip that step instead. If you do, gain 2 life. And when you draw a card, destroy fasting. I want you to note the integral ways of how bad this card messes up your world so you can gain 2 life.
So wait a minute. So you're the act of fasting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you begin your draw step, you may skip it. So you don't draw a card and gain life.
Right.
So that implies that fasting somehow gives you life?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
Very, very.
You can gain 10 life over the course of 5 turns. You don't actually get to skip the draws, right? You just have to skip your draw steps. You have to skip 5 draw steps before it destroys itself.
Right. But if you draw a card ever for any other reason,
Right.
regardless, done.
I mean,
Done.
that kind of makes sense. Like, I get it from the flavor perspective. Okay, you're caving on your fast to draw a card. Like, that
Right.
makes sense. But I'm just not sure how fasting gives you life. Like, fasting should make you hungry and mad and like irrational. And
This was
Well, spiritually, it feeds you, I think, is the
okay. I could see that.
right. This is
point.
right. This is another one of those nice examples of like, hey, Wizards didn't know how much a card was worth, and a card's worth a lot more than 2 life.
Yeah.
Let alone all the things that like destroy it, and you have to skip all the stuff, and it's just, it's never been.
Interesting to note that we do seem to have more than one card on this list where it feels like life was overvalued. Where they were like, you'll give up a card for life, right? Like you'll pay 4 and discard a card, right? And it's like, no.
You'll skip 5 draw steps for 10 life, right? That sounds reasonable, doesn't it? Oh man. Let's move on here to number 4. Aaron, what's number 4?
So my number 4 could be considered a hate card, but in order to be a hate card, it's gotta hate something. Like when I look at Leyline of the Void, I know what it's there to do. Like I know what it's there to do. I feel the pain of its presence. Stony Silence, Blood Moon, things of that nature. Like it's a hate card because it's hateful. It's performing, it's creating, it's making people feel hate. You're either hating something or the people who are playing it are hating you. This is a card that I feel like that's what they were going for. But when I look at it, and maybe it's just because I wasn't playing competitively around that time. It came out when I first started playing Magic. But when I look at this, I'm just like if somebody were to have played this against me, I would have been like, okay. Like, I just don't feel it. My number 4 is Melting. So Melting is 3 and a red. It's an enchantment. It says all snow-covered lands become non-snow-covered lands of the same type.
All lands are no longer snow is the new
Right.
wording.
What's the problem there? Like, like who is really sitting there going, well, crap, I better keep some disenchants in place. I don't want to get melted. Like, I just don't understand the threat there where it's like, okay, like, done. I'm just not understanding. Like, it would be like if you played an enchantment against artifacts that were like, your artifacts have smiley faces on them. Like, cool, pass the turn. Like it just doesn't have the impact for me.
Yeah, Wizards. This is a nice example of Wizards not valuing card types enough because they tried to make snow stuff a thing, and if the person controls a snow land, blah blah blah, and ice quake and all this other crap, and it was just garbage, and it was never good, and this was just a joke. And even if this were a card that should have existed, 1 mana is the best you got out of me. I'll give you 1 mana. And then I'll still feel bad, and we'll still probably put it on this list.
Yeah, if this had turned them into islands, like Blood Moon turns things into mountains, that would have been cool. all snowlands are now just melted, covered in water. That's kind of neat. As it is, what this isn't doing anything.
It does nothing. No rod does nothing. This just is nothing. This is
Right, it just is nothing.
this is
And it costs you a lot of mana to do nothing.
4 mana and a card to make them read it and go, seriously?
Yeah.
Ruben, what is your number 4?
It's really interesting that Aaron and I sort of are on the same page for our number 4s, because my number 4 is also a card that references snow permanents and is also trying to be a snow hate card, ? I'm giving a pass to a lot of these old cards, to a lot of the stuff from the Dark and Fallen Empires. We all know that Homelands was garbage. We don't need to harp on it. They should know better by the time Cold Snap comes around.
Yeah,
They should know better by the time we've got, the new order and things like that. And yet we still get things like Freyalise's Radiance, colorless and a green enchantment, cumulative upkeep of 2 colorless.
Yes.
Jeez, heavy burden to keep this Freyalise's Radiance in play. At the beginning of your upkeep, you put an ice, or you put an age counter on this permanent, then sacrifice it unless you pay its upkeep cost for each age counter. So not only does it cost 2 to play now, you're paying retail. You have to pay your layaway costs, 2 on the next turn, 4 on the next turn. And for that high burden, snow permanents don't untap during their controller's untap steps. That's what you get.
Ain't nothing radiant about this.
My God, this is actually a weird kind of great counterexample to melting, where they tried, almost seems even harder, to make land snow things matter. And I'm telling you, as a guy who has played Cold Snap Limited, first of all, do not play Cold Snap Limited. Holy cow, it is wretched. Ugh. It's bad. But even in that format, this card is totally unplayable. Like, it's unplayable garbage, because the whole point is a card like this you play to slow them down, to stop them for some time so you can play your own stuff. Had this been cumulative upkeep of 1, at least then you could have said, well, I get 1 mana discount so I can play something else, so I can take advantage of it. No, it's bad. It's bad,
Yeah,
and they should know better.
If this had been cumulative upkeep of 1 and it made your opponent's stuff come into play tapped, it would still be bad.
It would still be bad, but it would be at least in a conversation of maybe possiblies, and you'd still not play it.
I do want to give a shout out to Tom
Sorry,
Baxa, though. I think the art's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, the art's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Very clearly Tom Baxa. The day that we're recording this, actually, Gavin Verhey tweeted out that briefly they toyed with having snow and ice cards be a theme in one of the Modern Masters sets. When red being the color pairing that they would have messed with, and floating the idea of a future snow permanent commander product for getting things like more snow lands out into the world, which would be very cool. And there are cool snow permanents, and snow-covered islands are very expensive these days. And Scred is a thing that has won a Grand Prix and is popular in Pauper. And there are ways to make snow work. This ain't one of them.
Yeah.
So let's imagine that you had a mechanic, all right? And this mechanic was really neat. It was all over the block in which it debuted. It's even come back a few times or whatever. And the mechanic itself is about whenever you make the mechanic work, it does something neat, or it gives you something cool, or it makes something happen. And you're always doing this with some amount of mana. And you see this card where you're like, oh wow, I got it. This is a cool like a trick. I can do this trick thing where I can play a card with Morph, and then I'll play Break Open, and I'll get this super low discount. Wait, what? I can only play it on an component's creatures?
What in the world?
This is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Break Open's a red and generic mana for an instant, a common instant. That it says turn target face down creature and opponent controls face up. Literally everything regarding Morph is about flipping those creatures, and you get bonuses when they're turned face up. So you're giving them that trigger too. And unless you're playing like two-headed giant EDH or something, what in the world are you doing playing this card?
Yeah,
it's weird and anathema, and at least it's common, I guess. You didn't get. you know, he didn't get, I guess, Mudhold. Not sure we're going to talk about that one later, but, you know, he didn't get the rare slot.
Especially because there are some creatures that you would just rather deal with as sort of the innocent, you know, kind of 2/2 morph creatures. Like, you know, I wasn't around for the original, you know, run of morph, but when I think of just even Centaur here, like, I would hate to cast this and get that big woolly mammoth that's like a 7/8. You're like, well, can you go back to being a 2/2? Like, why? What's the advantage to doing this? I don't understand.
There were a couple of corner case scenarios where it was like, well, my opponent has multiple Willbenders in their deck. I guess I'll play Break Open. But that's like,
I'll show them.
I can count on 0 fingers the number of times that I've seen Break Open cast and make it and it be good. Yeah. This was my number 6.
Nice.
This is one of only 2 cards with an old border on my list. Because I wanted to give an excuse to the older cards, but I can't excuse this. Like, it's such a cool idea. What this could have been, of if it didn't have the opponent clause on it, of like, oh, I get to use a card to cheat the cost.
Right.
Something like a momentary blink kind of effect. You know, oh, it costs me 1 billion mana to unmorph a Brine Elemental. If I could break open my own Brine Elemental, that's super cool, right? And that's the sort of, no, you don't get to do that. You don't get to have fun.
I mean, yeah, like if the average like unmorph cost was 3 and this was 1 red and you could target any morph, I would be like, that's neat. That's gameplay. That's exciting. What are you doing? Oh my god, it's dumb. It's dumb and it makes me sad. So there you go. All right, let's see here. We have went over number 4. Let's go to number 3. This is my one and only hire. We will talk about it later. Aaron, what's number 3?
My number 3 is also higher. And I also have to mention that my number 9 has not been covered yet. So that means it's in somebody's top 3, I think, which is wild.
Well, let's see if it's Ruben's. Ruben, what's your number 3?
I kind of regret not putting this at number 7, seeing as it references the number 7 a couple of times. But I think that it's so bad that it needs to be number 3. I've never wanted a card to be, you know, people got mad that Grizzlebrand cost 8 when it had 7 so many times on it. This is a card that I wish said, you can have up to 7 copies of this in your deck. Because then it would maybe make sense. But as it is, Stomping Slabs makes absolutely no sense. It's horrid. It's bad. I can count on 0 fingers the number of times that I've seen Stomping Slabs cast.
Wow.
And it's an uncommon, so you can't even play it reliably in limited to make it work. It's 2 colorless and a red sorcery, uncommon from Morningtide. Reveal the top 7 cards of your library, then put those cards on the bottom of your library in any order. If a card named Stomping Slabs was revealed in this way, it deals 7 damage to any target. Which is a cool idea, right? That you have these sort of like magical, like self-folding rocks that are rolling down the hill, and they need more of themselves to be able to create the avalanche effect. The execution is so bad on this card. This card does nothing so often that it can't possibly be any lower.
This is the type of card where you're like, okay, I'm going to build, this is the draft deck, right? This is my drafty thing. I'm going to get 3 or 4 of these. We're going to make it, wait, what? It's an uncommon?
Right.
Even
can you imagine if this had Ripple 7 or whatever?
And
or
it's funny
any
because when you first mentioned this card, we keep a little, so behind the scenes fact, we keep little windows open to be able to see each other's cards. And so I just went to look this up, and my first thought was, oh, is this from the same set as Ripple? Because then maybe it might make sense. But I'm like, oh no,
just kind of out of nowhere. Also, it's not on theme at all for Morningtide. It's very anachronistic.
It's stupid because
very stupid.
If it was just common, again, at least you could say, well, I'm playing the Stomping Slabs deck this time, you know.
Right.
But an uncommon even is as bad as it is, as in you're definitely the only person playing Stomping Slabs, and you'll definitely get them 8th pick if you have to. There's just not enough opened in an 8-player draft to ever make it worth it.
Correct.
Not like once. It's awful.
Can you imagine if this even had the Relentless Rats text on it of you can play any number of Stomping Slabs in a deck?
Right, or maybe if it had like a
wouldn't play
thing where like maybe it shuffles back in somehow, or like you're never, I
think if it Relentless Rats, you might want to have it cost maybe 1 more mana. Like if you're guaranteed to hit it for 3 mana to deal 7 damage, you do that 3 turns in a row. I'd understand maybe bumping it 1 more turn because at that point you're probably dead anyway.
That's why I wanted to have 7 copies in your deck.
There you go. Very nice. Very nice.
So is this, let me ask you this, this is sort of a judgy question. So if there are multiple, let's say you hit the jackpot and there's multiples in that 7, did you deal 1 7 damage?
Deal 7 once.
Yep.
Okay, so it's not like you could just kill someone with like a 7.
It's not like you could just reveal 4 copies of
'Cause that
Stomping
was-
Slabs and
like,
deal 35 or
I'm
whatever.
interested in that. But...
Right. So we're gonna move on here to number 2. This is our top 2 worst cards ever. I can't get out of the past. I lived through a whole bunch of it. Therefore, I have to relive it over and over again. And sometimes that well's deep, and that well is called Legends. We're back. Let me talk about another card first, okay? Because context is important, particularly when we're talking about bad cards. Sometimes it takes bad cards to make the good cards look good, right? Well, once upon a time, there was a card in Rise of the Eldrazi. It was a rare called Devastating Summons. For 1 red, you sacrifice as additional cost. You had to sacrifice X lands, but you got 2 X/X red elemental creature tokens as a result, right? Okay, so 1 mana and some lands, 2 creatures. That's freaking fantastic. Wood Elemental is it's a reserve list card, currently $16 for this piece of garbage. Has some really creepy, weird, freaky looking art. It is a green and 3 generic mana for a star. And as it enters the battlefield, you sacrifice any number of untapped forests. Let's note, untapped. And forests only. Wood Elemental's power and toughness are each equal to the number of forests sacrificed as it entered the battlefield. Untapped forest.
And it costs
this
4.
Was my number 3.
Nice.
This is a big risk. I could see if maybe this had like hexproof, maybe if it had, indestructible, something to sort of protect it. But you're putting so many eggs in one basket, and it doesn't take a lot to kill the basket. There's just so many ways you could kill this thing, and then you're out of your lands. And it would be one thing if maybe, I don't suppose you can like in response, like float the mana.
Float the mana, then use like Mishra's Helix to untap all your lands, or Candelabra.
First of all, let's read the super adored Legends version text, which is stars in the lower right hand corner are set to the number of untapped forests you sacrificed when Wood Elemental is brought into play. Get brought in, y'all. So imagine yourself here. You want to play a 4/4 Wood Elemental. You sacrificed 4 untapped forests and also had to pay 4 mana for it. So there's your 8 mana, essentially 4/4.
This is another one where the flavor doesn't really add up. Like I would think that like Dungrove Elder, that was to me that kind of says it more, where it's like you're as a Wood Elemental, you'd want to be bolstered by the wood around you. Like why would you sacrifice wood? It doesn't make any sense. Like, it's a black thing, but not really a green thing. Like I don't.
Would you?
Would
you?
Wow.
Let's leave this one.
Oh my god!
I don't think there's any reason for us to stick on this card much longer. We can certainly bow out.
Now, this card has taught us a very important lesson, and that we need to remember our roots.
Absolutely.
Oh my Lord God. We're out of here before the puns get any worse. All right.
I'm going to take my trunk and leave.
It's important that we branch out.
That's right.
Okay. Bark. Aaron, what's your number 2?
My number 2.
Good addition, Evan.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, so my top 2 deeply offend me, and I'm so bothered by these 2, and I feel attacked when I see these, and poor Tom Baxa. We talked about Tom Baxa a couple times today, and I don't know if it's just, I feel bad because he's been on a number of these cards, and I'm sure he can't help it. But this is a card that I don't understand. It's so expensive. It does something that on the surface you think I would like, but I don't really understand. I don't really know who this is for. And the flavor text also implies that it's a bit of a disappointment. My number 2 is Face of Fear. So Face of Fear is 5 colorless and a black for a creature type horrors. 3 power, 4 toughness. Then for an extra 2 and a black, you can discard a card from your hand. Face of Fear can't be blocked this turn except by artifact creatures and or black creatures, essentially giving it fear, what it was once known by, or I think it's still known by in a sense. But that's a lot of mana. That's a lot of mana. That's quite a bit of an investment, and you're just not really getting enough for it. And I'm just like, this is a lot, and I don't understand who this is for.
How does Face of Fear not just have fear?
Thank you. Like it has to put its face on? I don't get it.
You had to rebuy the face every time. This looks,
shout out to bad 6-mana black creatures from the early to late 2000s.
Look, there was this point in time, and I swear to God, I don't know where it sort of started, and I don't know when it sort of ended, but Wizards kind of had this thing where they just kind of started trolling players of just like, how bad we're going to make this removal spell. You're going to play it anyway. How bad can we make it before you stop playing it? And like, how bad can we make our 3/4s that can give itself evasion before you stop playing it? Is 6 mana too much? And you're like, yeah, man, 6 mana is pretty much the floor. That's where you found it. Congratulations. This card's poop.
It's really, really, really bad.
Ruben, what's number 2?
My number 2, again, I was trying to avoid. I avoided the super old stuff, but I still have 2 cards that have old borders on my list, and sometimes a card comes along that is just so bad that it doesn't do anything. Like Stomping Slabs maybe could theoretically do something. There's no way Pale Moon ever does anything. Ever.
Nothing.
It's a rare from Nemesis, which for my money is top 5 worst sets of all time, along with Prophecy, which those 2 sets were back to back. Not a great year for Magic the Gathering.
It wasn't. It was bad. It was horrific.
Pale Moon is a colorless and a blue instant. Until end of turn, if a player taps a non-basic land for mana, it produces colorless mana instead of any other type. So, what is this doing exactly? It's not turning off your additional mana creators, things like Gaia's Cradle or Phyrexian Tower. It's just turning the type into a different kind. I guess maybe it can mess with an opponent's turn once for the cost of a card.
Yeah, I mean, this was my number 9, and
nice.
It would be cute. Like we have cards like Damping Sphere now, which stop the Tron players from getting out of hand, and so, but that never goes away. Like that's a permanent answer that these kinds of decks need to deal with. But this is kind of like it's kind of like the Mind Break Trap problem, which I'm experiencing in Vintage. Is that a skilled pilot is just going to dance around it. Where like if somebody's about to go off, you go Pale Moon, they're like, I'll just do it next turn. Like it's not something that they really have to worry about. And so I just don't get it. And it's not nearly as punishing as it should have been.
What problem are you solving? That's the question I ask myself every time.
Question.
I come back to this card and I just go, what are you answering? What problem was going on in R&D when you're like, I got it. We got this hoser, and someone reads it.
It's so sad too, because in the story arc of Nemesis, which the story arc of Mercadian Mask's Nemesis Prophecy was not great in any stretch, but this was like the final scene. This was the Weatherlight taking off and moving on to a new world. This was the big climactic before the end credits roll card. Pale Moon, and it's a rare. Like this was the big finish to your pack.
Woo! Oh, it was a finish, all right. Let me tell you.
Oh boy.
Oh my God! All right, so let's move on here to our number 1 with a bullet. Aaron, what's your number 1?
How dare you? How dare you? That is the best way I can sum up my number 1, because it is so offensive to me. As a black mage, as a dredge player, how dare you? This is a card that I just look at it and I get it. I get where they were trying to go with it. But, we talked about this a couple of times with some of our selections is, kind of being counterproductive. We talked about My Choice, for example, where you can discard a card, but then gain life equal to the cards in your hand. Why would you do that? Like it kind of eats itself. And I guess that's the point if it's a black card, but that it's just doing too much. It is doing something that I cannot fundamentally get on board with. And I'm just so ashamed and embarrassed. My number 1 is Blood Curdler. So Blood Curdler is 1 and a black. It's a creature type horror. It's a 1/1 with flying. Okay. At the beginning of your upkeep, put the top card of your library into your graveyard. I'm listening. This seems fine. What could possibly go wrong? Icarip? Okay, fine. We got things to feed. I get it. Has Threshold, which is not unusual. If at any type you have, as long as you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard, you have Threshold. Fine, I've been there. Blood Curdler gets +1/+1, and has at the end of your turn remove 2 cards in your graveyard. Okay, I can't. From the game.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's a weird one.
Why?
Wow.
Why?
What the hell is that art? What is that art?
Also,
What
what
is
is
it? It has
happening
nothing to do with
in
blood. There's no
No
sort of
blood,
like, typically
no
with blood, there's like some life, there's some draining, there's something like that happening. It has nothing to do with blood. It feeds your graveyard, but then does worse. It's like take 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Like removing your own creatures. Like it's one thing if you're getting an Icarid back because you're getting a 3/1 hasty, a beater, and that's fine. But like you're getting all you cap out at +1/+1. So it's not as if it stacks where maybe you could eat more things and get it really, really big. No, that's a really steep price to pay for that type of effect. And if you're asking me, it's too steep of a price. Like how dare you?
It should have at least have been a counter, a +1/+1 counter. At
Right.
the least, we would still hated it, but it'd been at least. Instead, we get like flying dog head with baby armpit. What? What are you doing?
Less than ideal.
It doesn't even look like it's flying. That's what's
No.
killing me.
Yeah, it's just so offensive to me where it's like you're going to feed the graveyard and then eat 2 things and then it just defeats the purpose. You're taking threshold away from it. Like why would you do that? I don't
Wow,
understand.
I heard you even say it, and then I forgot that it had flying.
I know, right? Like, look,
Gee.
hashtag baby armpit. All right, that's where we're at. Ruben through the series of hints here, and my only hire remaining. I know what your number 1 is, so go ahead and bust it, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, it's real easy to make fun of sorceries that do nothing for their corner case or hate cards, but it takes something special to be a creature. You want to have creatures in your limited deck. It takes something special to be a creature with evasion, right? That you're looking for your limited deck. A common. You can get a lot of, you know, that you want to have flyers in your limited deck. To be a bad flyer, it's something special. And they've a bad common flyer at that. And they've done a couple of these over the years. You know, Avon Trooper comes to mind as another example. But the worst of the worst, because this card's so bad that there are multiple people who I've heard of and know that collect them and fill their binders with as many Chimney Imps as they can possibly find.
Oh my God.
Chimney Imp is a imp, shockingly. 4 colorless and a black for your 1/2 flyer. Better do something really good, huh? When it dies, target opponent puts a card from their hand on top of their library. Great. It has a dice.
I think the only way I can imagine that this somehow made it through R and D, both the R and the D, somehow I think the thinking was it has evasion and we have equipment. So yeah, it doesn't have much power because you have to give it the power, right? That's it. That's all you got, Wizards. That's 100% all you got from me. The end. This card was garbage. Hot, uncastable, stinky.
You know, Ruben, it's funny that you mentioned the fact that it's an imp because it wouldn't surprise me if it wasn't. You know, how many cards have we seen? How many terrible cards have we seen out there that you think are one type and they're not even close? We've even covered a couple of them. The fact that Great Wall's not a wall. I mean,
you're not wrong.
Good point.
But,
yeah, I mean, you look at a card that came out 2 sets later in Chittering Rats that does the opponent puts a card on top of their library, and that costs 2 mana less and does it when it comes into play.
And
You don't have to wait for it to do anything.
Where are the chimney? Are those supposed to be
No
roofs?
chimneys. The wings are apparently giving off some kind of soot, but it's green soot. It doesn't.
Well, it's different if it's giving off the suit. Like I would think if an imp had been in the chimney, it can't help it. Like it's going to come out of the chimney dirty, and maybe you have to like shake off the soot. But if it's spitting out soot,
it's got like weird jets on it of green spewed grossness. And those are all like Vault of Whispers, so they're vaults. They're not really chimneys. There's not a lot of chimney in Chimney Imp, y'all. As it turns out. There's not a lot to Chimney Imp, period, other than sadness.
I was just going to say, they need to have Bert from Mary Poppins on the art instead.
Wow. Well, look, guys. Old man magic, all right? Hashtag MTG Dad, okay? Yeah. I'm going to bring it to you old school. I'm going to bring it to you so old school. I know Ruben didn't even bother putting it on his list because he knew I'd put it on my list. This is, like, for me, there is no question. There's just literally, there's not been a question for the past 15 years that I've given a crap about Magic as I have. There has been no question as to what the most terrible, awful, no good, very bad card is. This is a card. Let me tell you how bad this card is, folks. They eroded it and made it worse. And that's a friggin' feat in and of itself. This thing was so stupid and so awful. They made it work different and it made it worse. I can't with Sorrow's Path. I can't. Sorrow's Path from the Dark is on the reserve list. God help us all. It's $5.85. The worst $5.85 you'll ever spend in your life. People, listen to me. People have written in entire articles about trying their hardest to make this work, to make it do something that makes sense. Nothing makes sense. Nothing ever. Nothing with this card makes any sense. Yeah. It's a land, okay? It's a rare in the dark. All right? People bought packs for this card. Yeah. Tap : and I'm going to read y'all the nice text so you can sort of kind of follow along here. Tap : choose 2 target blocking creatures an opponent controls. If each of those creatures could block all creatures that the other is blocking, remove both of them from combat. Each one then blocks all creatures the other was blocking. Okay, you're exchanging blockers. That's it. That's the core of what this thing is trying to do. Is your opponent blocks with 2 creatures and you go, okay, swap them. That's what it's doing. That's the whole effect. Okay. In the meantime, whenever Sorrow's Path becomes tapped, it deals 2 damage to you and each creature you control. Pyroclasm your own board and shock yourself. Because you're an idiot. And the best part is that used to be tied up in the ability, and it got so bad, they just made it a whenever Sorrow's Path becomes tapped. So now your opponent can tap Sorrow's Path to deal 2 to you and all of your creatures. Yes. Yeah. I cannot. It got worse. They made Sorrow's Path worse.
You're going down a path of sorrow if you play this card.
You're going down a path I cannot follow, okay? Insert prequel meme.
I mean, it's bad enough that I just don't even see a purpose for. I don't even see a point to the first ability where it's like.
What is that art? What is they doing? What is
the art? Yeah.
What is that like a monkey? Is that a person? I can't. Is that a sword? Is it in their head? What is going on? What's in the background with the dragon and like some knights? A dude with a club? What the hell is happening here? Where's the sorrow? Where's the path? I can't. I can't ever with this card. It's just the worst.
A home run of bad all the way around.
And then they updated it and made it worse.
Did they say like what prompted the update? Like, was it a card they were concerned about?
I think it was like 6th edition rules or something. It was like a big rules update where it's like you cannot wrap this 2 damage to you and your creatures in between all this exchanging blocking stuff. So we'll just separate them, and instead we'll make it whenever it becomes tapped because you hate yourself. Okay. It's just so god awful. Yeah, so Sorrow's Path for me, number 1, not close. That was our worst top 10. Our top 10 worst cards ever. It could be our worst top 10 if you want to think about it that way. By the way, you're going to see them on the screen right now for your review. Take a look at my crappy list. Aaron's Garbage Fire and Ruben's Dumpster Dive. And we want to hear from you about what card we did not talk crap about, and we'll select our favorite to win a $50 gift certificate to CoolStuffInc.com. So this is for $50, all right? It's time to dish. It's time to drop kick from the top rope.
We want the best comment for the worst cards.
That's right. But before we go, I want to thank my co-hosts. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Ruben.
Thank you. And I'd like specifically to thank you, Evan, for not having my homegirl Jaya on your list. So much appreciated.
From me to you, buddy. Here we go. All right. I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsor, CardHoarder.com, my co-hosts, Aaron Camel and Ruben Bressler, you guys for watching and listening, and hope you support us at Patreon.com/MagicMikes. Please follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe to everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online at Twitch.tv at Magic Mikes, on Twitter at Magic Mikes Cast, our Magic Mikes subreddit, and like the Magic Mikes page on Facebook. Talk to us privately at MagicMikesPodcast@gmail.com. Follow the audio-only podcast at MagicMikesPodcast.libsyn.com, or find us on iTunes, or join us here next week. Same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mikes. Good night, everybody.